And then Yamaha announced the R9.
And there was much rejoicing.
Brave Sir Robin ran away.
No!
Bravely ran away, away.
I didn't!
When danger reared its ugly head, he bravely turned his tail.
No!
This video is powered by Flying Eyes. Whether I'm riding on-road or off, they're my choice of sunglasses thanks to their thin and flexible stems, so I can ride for hours with no pressure points. Click that link down in the description below and use the code SC10 for 10% off your order. Okay, was anybody really surprised to hear that the R9 was coming out? I mean, after the amount of collective complaining that people did about the R7 not being the true successor to the R6 once the R6 basically got turned into a track-only motorcycle everywhere, I gotta believe Yamaha just immediately started working on the R9. Also, I think the only thing that really held them up was developing a new frame for the MT-09, because anybody who's ridden a Gen 1 MT-09 knows how horrendously that thing handles. Even Ari Henning could not solve how bad the MT-09 used to handle. With a full set of Öhlins, with better tires, with Valentino Rossi's magic vapor rub, he could not fix that motorcycle. So honestly, it makes sense that it took so long for us to hear about the R9. But I will give Yamaha one thing. I think they managed to announce a motorcycle without pissing anybody off. When was the last time that ever happened? I mean, sure, there's probably a few disappointed track rats out there who are really hoping that the R9 was going to be the true super sport successor to the R6. But when you heard that it was gonna fit between the R1 and the R7, did you really expect it to be a track-only weapon? It was very clearly gonna be designed for the streets because, let's be real, people just aren't buying 600s anymore. They haven't been for years. And in that sense, I'm not gonna bury the lead here. I genuinely believe that 600cc motorcycles are dead. I believe the R9 is officially the nail in that coffin. Don't get me wrong, there are gonna be so many die-hard 600 riders who are not gonna move on, and I'm not getting rid of my CBR 600 F4i because I love the sound of that thing, but it is demonstrably less practical than something like the R9. So with all that being said, let's dive into the specs we actually know about this motorcycle, and they are few and far between at this point. If you are waiting for the first ride reviews to come out, you're gonna be waiting until after the bike is actually released. According to Yamaha, the bike is gonna be out in March of 25, and they're gonna start getting press rides done in April of 25, which, by the way, Yamaha, don't think I didn't notice that you did a photo shoot and filming at COTA. That is literally in my backyard. If somebody does not get a phone call about the R9, I'm gonna think it's a little bit personal. So anyway, the specs. We've got a claimed wet weight of 430 pounds. That's still very light with a lot of power, though we don't know exactly how much power because it's the 890cc motor that has its own ECU map and it has 2 teeth less in the rear sprocket, but they did not claim horsepower numbers. That's just not what Yamaha does. It has a full suite of electronics, including traction control, ABS, cruise control, rider modes, all of that good stuff. It's got KYB fully adjustable suspension that looks like it's almost right off a R1 from like a generation ago. We've got Brembo brakes off the MT-09, and we do have winglets, which just goes to show that winglets are cool. It doesn't matter how stupid they are on a street bike because they are functionally useless, especially on a motorcycle that really isn't gonna be hitting anywhere close to like 180 miles an hour where you actually do see downforce from winglets. It's just about looking neat. Now, power-wise, what can we expect from the R9? I would say it's probably gonna be almost identical to what we've got in the current MT-09, which is 117 horsepower and 69 foot-pounds of torque. Nice. What I would expect here is they're doing the usual thing where they're basically retuning the throttle mapping. They're not actually going to be changing the power that this motor puts down. I haven't heard anything about new cams. I haven't heard anything about new internals. I think it's just going to have a different way of delivering power that's more designed at the top end, especially when you consider that they took 2 teeth out of that rear sprocket. The funny thing is though, I rode a MT09 back when we were giving it away at Yami Noob, and I went and did my own first ride on it. It was the first time I had ridden an MT09, I think ever. And I was watching it back with Yami and he was like, dude, why are you keeping the motor screaming the whole time? Why don't you downshift? It's always like above 7,000 RPM. And I was like, that's where the motor feels happiest. So honestly, I think if they just leave that motor completely unchanged, they just give you the 2 teeth down in a slightly more top end focused tune, I think it's gonna be great. Because that motor really does like to rev out. As much torque as it gives you down low, and it is a biblical amount of torque, I think it's gonna be great up top. And I do think that by reducing that sprocket count just a little bit, you are gonna make it a little bit easier to put all that power down coming out of a corner. Now, as far as ergonomics are concerned, I've seen a couple of photos and I've seen some video, which is probably rolling now, of dudes over-exaggerating their body position on the motorcycle. I would reckon that this is probably somewhere between, just like the power, between the R7 and the R1. The R1 is gonna be that completely compact rider triangle. The R7 is a lot more open, but the R9 has the clip-ons below the triple tree, so you are gonna be canted forward. It's got adjustable rear sets, so I imagine you can raise your feet up just a little bit to get you in that more compact triangle for the track, or you lower it for a little bit more relaxed riding on the street. But when you compare this to the existing competition right now, based on my rough specs guess that it's basically just gonna be putting down the exact same power, this thing mostly competes with just the ZX6R. The ZX6 is like 131 or 127 horse. This is 117, so it's making a little bit less, but it has a much more usable power plant. And the ZX6 was already the most usable 600. So if this is more usable for the average rider, what is the point of a 600? Seriously, what is the point? Other than having the top end horsepower and being able to zing it all the way out to like 14,000 RPM, there really isn't one. The nice thing about the triple cylinder power plant, as much as I'm not a fan of triples, I really am not. The MT09 motor is really the only one that I've ever gelled with. I do not love Triumph's triples. They just don't do it for me, for whatever reason. But I will give the triple cylinder motor this one thing. It does not fall on its face after the power is delivered. If you think about V-twin superbikes or my new Tuono or whatever, all of those motorcycles, they absolutely fall on their face after the power is delivered. There's nothing left. Triples do actually have a little bit of over rev, which is nice, especially on a racetrack. Now this bike comes in at $12,500, which, given the fact that it has Brembo brakes, fully adjustable suspension, a massive tech suite, and a phenomenal motor in a phenomenal frame, I gotta wonder where the corners have been cut. Yamaha, in my mind, is the company that makes the best bikes on a budget. I don't mean that to be derogatory in any way. I actually really like that fact. Yamaha is going to cut corners on some of the fit and finish to give you the best components they possibly can at the best price they can. So is this going to feel as nice as a ZX6R? Probably not, but it's going to be so much faster than a ZX6R anywhere but the top end of the power band. So for anybody who's not riding on Circuit of the Americas, you're probably gonna be fine. And let's be real, if you're on Circuit of the Americas, that back straight is only 1 kilometer, so most riders are probably not aggressive enough to actually be able to finish up the entire power band by the back end of that kilometer, because you're gonna hit the like 300-yard mark and roll off the throttle and then get on brakes at 150 or something like that. When we look at the crop of non-600cc kind of street and track focused bikes, we've got a handful right now. We've got the 675 SS from CF Moto. We've got Triumph's new Daytona 660. We've got the R7. We've got the GSX or GSX-R, God damn it, Suzuki, just call it the Gixxer 8. It's the Gixxer 8, not the Gixxer 8. It's the Gixxer 8. Suzuki. Anyway, when you look at all those bikes, the R9 is the king of that crop. It is basically creating a new class. It's competing with something more like the RS660 from Aprilia, but it's pushing that boundary even farther because it's got a bigger motor. I feel like if we do see the KTM going up against the MT09, or the MT09, the R9, that'll be a really close comparison. But again, I think the R9 is gonna come in way cheaper and more people are gonna grab it because why not? It also probably won't eat its own cams. So there's that. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on the R9 down below. Are you interested in picking one up? Because I'd really like to see how this thing performs. And I would love the opportunity to take one of these out on the track. Yamaha, again, if you're listening and I don't get an email or a phone call, I'm gonna take it personally. Just kidding. But seriously, you know, help a brother out. Please. Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.